Yeah, hi, my name's Mark Miller.
Hi, good to meet
I'm
you.
your counselor here today that kind of work through some of the things that you'd like to work on. Your name is?
My name is Monica.
Okay, nice to meet you, Monica. Is that what you go by? Is there any other nicknames or anything that you'd like to be called while you're in here?
I've had a lot of nicknames in my life, but none of them ever stuck, so no, I just kind of stick
Okay.
with Monica now.
Monica's fine for me. So as we go through here, that's how I'll address you. Did you get up here okay? Because as you can see, I'm kind of in a closet. So and finding this place, I know is not the easiest. So did you make it here okay?
Yeah, my GPS kind of threw me for a loop, but, managed it in the end, and yeah.
Hopefully you use Google, not iMaps. Maps will run you like 3 blocks over. So
That's why I was a little bit late.
okay. Well,
But hey, I made it. I made it in the end.
That's what matters. You're here,
Yeah.
right? So we get an opportunity to kind of work and talk a little bit today. Right off the beginning, I really want to do how would I say it? Some real housekeeping stuff. Just give you kind of a lot of information, let you know a little bit about me, the policies, and everything else here, so
Okay.
we can get that all out of the way. And when we start actually working together, what ends up happening is we won't have to worry about so much of that because that'll be gone, and we'll both have all the information. But first off, we're one of the areas up here that we kind of really focus on is confidentiality. And when you were in the weight room earlier, they gave you all the packets full of paper and everything
Big
else.
old pile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty overwhelming. And if you're like me, I'm getting a little old, so I got to have my glasses to kind of read all that stuff. But was there any questions you had on all that before I kind of re-explain it? I mean, was there any questions as you rolled through there?
It was just so much, and it was so dry. So I skimmed it, and I signed it. I don't know. Are there any particular parts that maybe were more important you'd want to?
Well, Well, I think they're all important in some way because they're going to give you some information. But I think for me, one of the probably the biggest ones is really looking at confidentiality, looking at release of informations, and then just some of the privacy stuff for you. I think is probably the most important stuff that I want to make sure we're really clear on. You're a volunteer up here, so you voluntarily came up here to be seen. So you have a lot more privacy than some folks that may have been asked to come over here by the courts and everything else. But there are some areas of your privacy or confidentiality that I do have to report information. And one of those is for some reason there was some court issue going on with you, and there was a subpoena that required some documentation. I can get my information subpoenaed by the court. The other big ones are really harm to yourself or harm to anyone else. I mean, really, this process is really to protect you and keep you safe, and it's really all about, as we keep you safe, it's about keeping other people safe. So if for some reason while you're in here you share that, hey, look, I don't want to live anymore, or, oh my gosh, there's this person that, if I had a car and could run them over with a bus, I would. We'd have to really look at and see, that process just to keep you safe throughout this whole thing. So that's probably some of the big areas. And it's really around safety. So if there's any domestic violence, if there's any child abuse or neglect or sexual abuse or anything along those lines, those would probably be areas that I would have to probably step out of my realm of just being your counselor and ensure that you are safe or other people safe because of that. Is there any questions on that?
That seems pretty fair. But as far as personal information, stuff I tell you about people, outside of a court scenario, I guess. So if I don't get in trouble and go to court, then I guess that just between.
Well, most all your personal information, like if and what I mean by breaking confidentiality would be, is if you said you were wanting to hurt yourself or somebody else, I would have to give other information, other facilities to take care of you, or notify somebody else. None of the information would be, Monica said this today, or Monica was planning on doing this today. Okay. So there's a certain amount of information that's never shared. But I did have to let you know that there are those special circumstances that we have to step outside and involve. The other pieces of there's the release of information. So if you did decide, are you in a significant relationship right now?
I am, yes.
Okay, and what's his name, if you don't mind me asking?
His name is Bill.
Bill. So if you decided, hey, look, for you to better understand what's going on with me and in my life, it would be good for you to get a hold of Bill to be able to get information on. It would be really good for us to, maybe have you fill out a release of information, allow me to contact Bill to be able to get information back. Same thing would be is if there's any other services that you're involved with that you would want me to give them information for, you could fill that out and we can actually provide that for them. Okay, so it just gives us some options about sharing information and gathering information for you, because at the end of the day is the more information we have, the better off we are long term in helping you get where you want to get to. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I do get some healthcare through community health services, so
Okay.
I guess I could see where that could come into play. Yeah.
And and in that process of release information, we may you may allow us to share back and forth. So basically, if nothing else, your care becomes very, how would I say, consistent across the board. And I just think that always works the best. But it's really ultimately up to you. One of the other things is we have some policies here. I work for this community clinic, and they have certain policies, and I buy into a lot of those policies as we go through here. But one of the big ones is really just kind of understanding, our no-show policy. In order for us to be effective, we have to see each other, and we have to be able to work together to be able to get to the end game, which is that big thing at the end that you want to accomplish throughout therapy.
Yeah.
So with that is, if you no-show, twice in here without contacting our facility, letting us know that you can't make the appointment, it's really in your best interest, in the facility's best interest, for us to, stop care and get you with someone that maybe you can make the appointments to, or that maybe you'd be wanting to make the appointments to in order to do that. And our policy allows for 24 hours, so it's pretty much nowadays with most medical appointments, you contact within 24 hours and says, hey Mark, I got this thing today at work, or I got this going on and you can't make it. That's great. What we don't want is me sitting here at 2 o'clock hoping that you're coming in and you don't come in, and then we can't further what you need. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, 24 hours should normally be enough. I do have a few health concerns with my liver, just involved with, I have hepatitis C, so I mean, there are some times where that kind of flares up a little bit, so 24 hours seems like pretty doable though.
All right, excellent. And if for some reason we run into any problems like that, because I know medically sometimes things happen and all of a sudden the next morning you could be really at a point where you're in a lot of pain, or you're just not really feeling good. Big thing will be you just contacting me and letting me know, hey Mark, this is what's going on. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it really comes down to our communication. We're a partnership in this process, and as long as we're communicating, we both know how this is going to go. As far as it should be very successful. So that's really a little bit about our policies. Any questions on any of those in any way?
It all seems pretty clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can do 24 hours notice all the time, but it should be all the time. So yeah, I think we're clear.
Okay, excellent. And then some of the other housekeeping is just understanding our roles. My role up here is going to be, I'm a social worker, and I'm a strong believer in self-determination, and for you to kind of guide our care to where we're going, and not be my agenda for what I think is best for you. It's really about what you find best for yourself, and let's move that direction. So part of my role is going to be help facilitate that. So as you can tell, I'm going to be taking a lot of notes today, which I don't really like taking a lot of notes, and this may be the only session I do that in, but you're going to see that I'm going to take a lot of notes, so that way my information is pretty accurate with where you're at. The other piece to that is as long as you're, very active in the process with me as I'm, doing all this, we can get you where you want to get to, in the process. Then we have your role, and your role is real important too, because once again is, you coming in here, kind of on time for your appointments, showing up when we have our appointments, and at the same time you being very honest in here. The information gets out. We are able to kind of process through that information, and I think you'll get to where you want to get to a lot faster. With you having that role. If for some reason you're missing appointments or you're not very honest, it very much limits our ability to kind of go and move forward with it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Does the role make sense for both of us?
Yeah, it seems fair. With the self-determination, I mean, I'm no expert in counseling, it'll be guided, I assume. I know what I want, but I don't necessarily know how to get there.
Exactly. Well, and the part of what I mean by self-determination is you're going to have we'll talk about it as we get on with our session, is you define what your future hope looks like. And by describing your future hope and kind of looking at that, is my job is to kind of guide you to, or at least, show you as you're going through your life where you've had hope before to try to get you to where you want to get to. And it's going to be a partnership. So it's not like I'm just going to sit here and do nothing, and you're just going to do it all. But it is very much about, us helping you find, just that. And, and as you do that, it's going to be your decisions of where you want to go. There's a lot of facilities out there that they have a kind of agenda sometimes, and they're going to move you. And what we found is that if you're moving the process, we're more successful in care. So that's what we want to do. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah, that sounds really fair. Yeah, explain that way. That makes total sense.
Sorry, I might have confused you.
No,
I kind of get a little long-winded and get excited about this.
You're fine.
And then lastly, just kind of explain myself. I'm very passionate and very excited about my kind of job up here and what I do. And at times I'm going to be kind of just really excited about it. And I want you to understand that that's just kind of how my personality plays out in the sessions. And as we go through here, hopefully you get to see my passions and how excited I am about your change and the work that you're doing. But I do like to let you know that, because at some points, you may have a question about it. So I did want to put that out there. But as we go through and we did all the clean house, we've talked about policies, we've talked about confidentiality, we've talked about releasing informations, we've talked about, what we expect from our facilities. We looked at both the roles, that we have. What brings you up here today to see me?
Well, we kind of brought up Bill a little bit. So, he's my boyfriend. We have, some issues going. Really, I guess the end goal is we want to be prepared for marriage, but there seem to be some things, some issues that we have that I think are kind of obstacles standing in the way of that. I guess the first one is we don't really communicate particularly well. We talk, but if there's like an issue or something happens, like we don't really fight. We don't really, and I don't mean that in like I mean it in like we avoid the topic altogether.
Okay.
Like, so it seems like if anyone starts to get heated, either we leave the room or we change the subject, and it doesn't seem like particularly healthy behavior, especially if you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody. That just doesn't. You have to be able to do that, and apparently we just can't.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're really committed to Bill. Like, you want to be married. You're coming in here to kind of, one of the things you want to do is look at the preparedness for marriage. Mm-hmm. So that commitment's just really incredible. And at the same time is you want to kind of address, and correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of want to address some of your communication barriers, such as how you speak and how, in some sense, maybe avoiding some of that communication. So is that pretty accurate as what you want to look at with as far as your relationship?
Yeah, definitely. We just need to kind of open up the lines of communication there, and I guess that's not all either. We have some, this was kind of brought to my attention more so than anything else, but I guess you'd call them dependency issues.
Okay.
Bill's not working at the moment.
Okay.
So, he is able to kind of, he's actually renting our apartment. He has enough money built up that he's paying for the rent and everything right now, but I'm the one working. It kind of seems like in the long run that's going to lead to some dependency. It seems like we just need to maybe look at a situation there where we can make that more even, potentially. And even with my job, it's kind of hard to, like I told you, with Hep C, it's kind of hard to, I miss work sometimes, and it's hard to, you never know how long that job's going to be around. So we're going to have to maybe try to figure something there out.
Okay. So outside the communication that you already talked about, in that there's definitely some logistical stuff that we're looking at as far as how often you're going to be able to work with some of your medical stuff. Mm-hmm. And then really at the same time is, with him not working is, how comfortable is he going to get, just being at home not working and you working a lot. So it does sound like, there are some areas there that, as we go through, there's very workable areas that we can work on in here. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, it does. Like I said, we want to have a healthy foundation for marriage, and I think those are the steps we need to take to get there, because right now I just don't think we're sound enough in our foundation to be there.
Okay, very good. So looking at just your relationships up, there's some things we can work on. What else is going on? What else has brought you in outside the relationship? Was that the only thing that brought you in? That we wanted to do some kind of communication stuff and teach you some tools on that, or was there some other things that we wanted to work on?
Well, the only other real things, I suppose. I mean, I've had some, alcoholism and drug use in the past. I've gotten really good. The last I haven't used, for instance, heroin in 4 months. Bill and I both attend AA. We have sponsors that we talk to regularly. That's actually where we met. But yeah, I mean, so Bill is he's been sober for a while now. As have I. It's just, I guess, you always wonder how long it can last. We see it enough in AA that people kind of fall off, at some point. So I guess that's another concern we have, is making sure that doesn't happen, because that's another thing that's going to complicate marriage or potential marriage. So
Okay. So understanding this, and I like to share it back with you, so I make sure I'm on the right page with you. But it sounds like coming in here, you care about Bill, you love Bill, you want to marry Bill, you want to prepare yourself for marriage. There's some issues that you feel that you all have that are important for you to address and kind of look at and change. Sounds like with the hepatitis C, there's some medical stuff going on. There's some limitations that creates. And then there's the drug addiction that that you have in your life that I imagine that from an AA standpoint you're going to work, and it's going to be a process of a lifetime working that. But I guess the one question that I have is how, with all that going on, how do you maintain sobriety for 4 months? That's pretty impressive.
Well, I mean, it's not easy. Obviously, it's always a struggle, but I would probably say that I guess the steadiest force in my life that's kind of keeping me able to maintain that is AA. Like I said, Bill and I are both in it, so that's one thing we do have in common, to where we are together. So in that kind of environment, we may not be communicating directly, but we're communicating in the same way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in AA, while it's directed at alcohol, I mean, it's, substances are substances to some degree. And, it just kind of keeps you grounded and keeps you, strengthened, I suppose. Yeah, so I would attribute it to AA and the interaction. Even though Bill and I don't communicate particularly well, obviously we're very close.
Yes.
So we kind of can rely on each other sometimes. Yeah, so AA and Bill, probably.
Okay. So it sounds like, really, it sounds like even though there's some areas that you want to work on, there's a lot of things that are really working well for you. Is that a true statement?
That's probably true. Yeah, and the things that are working are just working really well.
Okay.
I suppose.
Excellent. And I'm a big, I really buy into, things that are working. That's a concept that I absolutely love. I have a little assessment tool called an Eco Map. Would you be willing to kind of do this with me while we're in here? Kind of gives us some background on some information.
Sure.
Okay, let's move some of this stuff out of here. All those forms you had to figure out that novel we got there. This is what's called an eco map, and basically what it is, it kind of identifies social support. It identifies people. It identifies interactions with different things such as financial. And it really helps us kind of understand you as a whole. So socially where you're at, emotionally, mentally where you're at, and it has us kind of outline that. And then what it does is it kind of has us looked at kind of different things such as lines and as we have this, fill this out, like what is strong relationships, things that are just really good for you and is really working for you, and then what are things that are stressed, that just don't seem to be working. You want it there and in place in your life, but it's kind of stressed at the moment. Things that are in conflict. What's not working very well that is definitely conflictual with where you want to end up. So as we go through here, This is going to be you, so we're going to write Monica down here. And I'm sorry, my spelling is absolutely horrible. Did I get that correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
That's good.
You know, what would probably be some of those things in there? So, what would be you know, individuals or groups or things that you have in your life?
Well, the two big ones would definitely be Bill and AA.
Okay, so
sure.
we'll put Bill over here, and we'll put AA. And where would you write those? Would you write those as tenuous, you know, or would you write them as you know, strong, stressed, or conflicted? With Bill.
With Bill, I would probably say. I guess I would say conflicted, not about like our feelings for each other. I mean, I definitely think we will get married. It's just with the communication issues. Like I feel like, you know, sometimes it just isn't what it should be.
Okay.
I guess.
And you'd mentioned that, so you know, better communication, more addressing the issues between the two of you. You know, this thing becomes really a pretty good thing. You know, so it's conflicted now.
Mm-hmm.
How about AA?
That would be a very strong connection, I would say.
So, you know, and I have, you know, I've been to some AA meetings sometimes and everything else, and I noticed that, you know, you're attending AA, but, you know, you mentioned that the heroin use. So, is there AA meetings available, or you just, AA just seems to work better for you?
Yeah, I mean, the AA is just something I've been with for a while. I like the people there. I know they have Narcotics Anonymous, but I don't know, I guess the way that I personally look at it is it's not what I'm addicted to as much as that I'm addicted to something. Okay. And if you have a support group that's encouraging you, I guess that really is kind of giving me a reason to feel like I should be who I am naturally and not who I am when I'm, you know, high on whatever it may be, whatever.
Excellent. So, you know, so AA is this very strong thing. So I imagine in AA, you speak a little bit, you share a little bit. Are you doing sponsorship at all?
Well, I do have my own sponsor. His name's Greg. I mean, we talk a lot. He's the kind of guy that, you know, he gives you his cell phone number on the first meeting, you know, so. Okay. Yeah, he's always there for me if I need him.
Okay, so strong relationship there also with Greg? Definitely. Okay. And any particular step you're currently on in the 12 steps of?
You know, they're so hard to keep track of. I'm somewhere in the, I think I'm on like 6 or 7. Like I'm making some pretty good progress. Been there for a little while. Okay.
But, one of the ones that I always found that, you know, a lot of the clients I've worked with has had difficulty with was the spirituality piece, and you know, obviously you're past that now. Does your spirituality show up on here as an aspect of your, you know, eco map?
I wouldn't say it shows up on mine. That was one of the steps I had a bit of an issue with. That's one thing Bill and I are not on the same page on, because he knows that I know that he has some spiritual beliefs. That was part of what, you know, got him through his struggles with alcohol. But I definitely do not see it the way he does. I don't have that spiritual feeling. It was, you know, the part of AA that I just kind of got through. And I feel like that may be a source of conflict with Bill and I, and maybe that's why sometimes we don't communicate, I guess, because it seems like sometimes he's holding back, and I feel like that may be what he's holding back, because he feels that's something we should consider, or something that is a solution, whereas I just don't.
Okay, so from a I guess a step standpoint, and you moving past steps 2 and 3 and looking at higher power or something greater than myself, how did you move past that? You know, how do you view that overarching spirituality for you to move through?
Well, I mean, I just kind of decided to look at it a different way. I think spirituality